Okay, it's a special moment for us now because over time you've heard us report on good news stories about this wild animal was saved and somebody found it lying in the bush or at the side of the road, and the animal is saved, and then somebody found the owl stuck in the electrical wires, and then the owl was saved and the owl survived, and all of these things these good news stories had one thing in common. And the one thing that they had in common was the Johannesburg Wildlife Veterinary Hospital. And everybody seems to take the animals there. And the reason why is because it's probably the only place where you can take wild animals. And we've been fortunate enough to hook up with Dr. Karin Lourens. Can I just call you Karin?
Karin, actually.
Karin. Okay, there we go.
My parents
Karin.
made it very difficult. It's spelled Karin and said Karin.
Yeah, well, okay, Karin. There we go. We'll go with Karin then. She is the lady, amongst others, who is the driving force behind this wildlife veterinary hospital. She's somebody who is drawn to wildlife, and we can tell you at the end how you can contribute to them, because they operate purely by donations and funding. And it's awesome to have you with us this afternoon, Karin. What drew you to being a vet, first of all?
Oh, I think the first time I wanted to be a vet was when I was 4 years old. I told my dad that I wanted to be an animal doctor, and it had never changed since then. So I've always wanted to do or work with animals. And then the wildlife vet started about 8 years ago when I went to a wildlife rehab center to volunteer. And I just fell in love with it. And I'm there. That's where I met my business partner, Nikki Wright. And we thought that the idea of having a wildlife vet hospital combined with a rehab center would be ideal, because all these rehab centers have to take their animals to their nearest vet, which is quite stressful for these animals because obviously they're wild. They don't like car trips. They don't like more people. So if you can make it as stressless as possible, that'd be great. Sorry if I'm a bit fidgety. My Dussie is running across.
No, there is. Seriously, folks, I'm watching this on the video. When she first came on the video, there was something on her shoulder. I said, hey, look, it's behind you, like a pantomime. It's behind you. And it was a little Dussie. It's like is this thing living with you? Is it being rehabilitated?
No, I'm hand raising it. So it's about 2 months old.
Yes.
So it's still on milk every few hours, but they're born with fur and teeth and eyes open, so they quite precocial. So they run around and jump around like an actual adult Dussie. So that's why it sits on my shoulder.
And is this going to be a pet, or does it go like all the other animals?
No.
Back into the wild?
No. We don't believe in wildlife as pets at all. All the animals we get in have to be able to be released into the wild again. We also don't put them in sanctuaries or zoos. They have to be a fully functional member of their wild brothers and sisters, or family, if you could call it that.
All right. Wildlife, I've always been fascinated. Look, you can go to a doctor, and as a normal doctor, as a human being, and you can say to the doctor, listen, I can see it, so my arm is sore and it's over here.
Yes.
And the doctor will say, okay, we can focus on that. Or I can say, you know what, I'm feeling a little bit, my head is a little bit thick. And then the guy will say, that's mainly because you're stupid. But you'll know where to start. You'll know where to start, and you can communicate. With animals, it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
And when a person takes their dog or their cat or to a vet, they can actually say to the vet, listen, he's been listless, or he's limping there, or something like that. But with wildlife, you don't even have that history. You've got to start from scratch with so many different animals. How do you even go about? Where do you even start?
But first of all, you have to know the natural behavior of the animal. So, for instance, just as an example, yellow-billed kites, when you handle them, they sit and look like they collapsed and in a coma. We call it catatonic. And that's normal for them. But if the first time you see it, you think, oh my word, it's had a brain trauma and it's paralyzed. So once you put them away for half an hour, and then suddenly they get up. So you have to learn the normal behavior of these animals. And then you follow basic principles. You see, like if the wing is hanging, you look at that. And if they're often, wildlife are very stoic. They don't want to show that they're hurt, because obviously things that will eat them will see that.
Yes.
Especially to humans. So we often put them somewhere where they can't see us, or put them in a dark little box or a carrier, so that they can sort of relax into what is really happening, and then we can see what is wrong with them.
I
But
think
we
it's
follow very
fascinating.
similar procedures. We take blood and we take X-rays, all these things. Yeah.
It's very, very interesting because these animals are really, although you will tell me that they do communicate in some way with you because you understand their behavior, but to the average person,
Yes.
they don't communicate. And you've got to kind of read between the lines, which is really very, very difficult. And yet your success rate is so high.
Yes, I must say, Nikki, the wildlife rehabilitation specialist, my partner in the hospital, she has more than 20 years experience in wildlife rehab. So we're actually the perfect combination of what skills we have. So when I do the sort of the fixing bit, and she can do where they have to go, what they normally look like, what they normally eat, how they behave, and we can sort of simulate that in the hope that they will be eventually be rehabilitated and released into the wild.
Okay, so here's the question. I'm driving along, and all of a sudden on the side of the road, I see a bird that is lying there, one wing in the air. What do I do? What do I do?
We have a 24-hour helpline if you want. You can always phone us, because sometimes people think that animals need help, but they don't. Like fledgling birds that are on the ground. Often people try and help them, but we call it kidnap because they could have just stayed there. But obviously, if it's next to the road with this one wing hanging, you've obviously been hit by a car, you can phone us. The best is just to wrap something like that in a towel or a jacket or whatever you have. Don't have your music blaring in the car, and you can actually take it to your nearest vet. Oftentimes they have some experience with it. But we can always advise people on where to go, because obviously if you're in the middle of Cape Town, it's a bit difficult to get it to us, but
Yes.
then we can advise where we know people in the area that we trust and that are experienced with wildlife.
Okay, so all that information is on their website, and the website, folks, is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's www.johannesburgwildlifevet.com. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep. And it's a 24-hour line, so it's always manned, that line.
Who mans it? You? Oh,
No, we take turns.
There's the Dusty. There's the Dusty on the shoulder. He's quite a big fella. He's quite a big fella.
He's only 2 months old, actually. They get about 4 times as big as this, and he's a bit of a they have a super personality, because I think because they're such excellent prey animals, anything wants to eat them, so they have to be a bit vicious all the time and bitey and growly. But I love them, I really do.
And apparently related to the elephant.
It's closest relative, not really related. It's like we're related to apes, but it's not a relative. And manatees and dugongs as well fall in the same group.
All right, I'm going to ask you this question because I know that is the right way to pronounce it pangolin?
Pangolin.
Pangolin. There we go. Pangolin.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now that's a particular interest of yours at the wildlife vet, and
yes.
It is an endangered species. Am I right?
Yes, it's a CITES 1 species, meaning it's the highest ranking you can have at CITES, meaning no trade is available, is allowed in them. To compare it, let's say rhino horn is CITES 2, so some trade is allowed, but not in pangolin. No, they're now the most trafficked mammal on the planet.
Why?
Unfortunately, that it's an age in demand. They use the scales in traditional medicine, but their traditional medicine is made in factories, so they use tons and tons of the scales instead of just a little bit. And unfortunately, it's also eaten as a delicacy in Asia. So you can pay $3,000 for fetus soup if you want to eat it. Lots of these underground type of restaurants you can choose the endangered species you want to eat, and then they will serve you that. In Africa, it was always part of the bushmeat trade and sort of sustainable, but unfortunately, it's not any bushmeat trade anymore. It's now a commodity. So they are actively hunted for their scales. And last year, they intercepted 97 tons of scales leaving Africa, which is 160,000 animals that died for those scales.
The animal is discarded or just eaten for bushmeat?
Yeah, it's discarded. Yeah. And the scales are much more valuable than the animal itself. So they often discard the meat now. Instead of eating it before, they would discard it and just sell the scales.
It's the wildlife trade, or the illicit wildlife trade. In fact, wildlife trade per se is just so wrong. And these creatures, do we have a lot of them in this country or not?
We don't actually know the exact number, because it's not like they're nocturnal, they're quiet, they don't, they're solitary, they live in burrows, so you can't see them. It's not like a rhino, you get into an airplane or a helicopter and you can count them. So we can't even estimate their numbers. We just know that they're disappearing at a tremendous rate. And they're slow breeders as well. They have a pup every 18 months. And at the rate that they're being poached, that's not sustainable at all. And we are worried that they'll be extinct in the next 10 years.
You had I was looking at your website earlier today, preparing for this discussion. I saw there's quite a video on there of a little one being born. Tell us that story.
Yeah, I think it's Tot. Maybe you saw there. Her mom came in from poachers, and she was pregnant, and she had her baby full term, thankfully. But unfortunately, the mom wasn't able to care for her. So we are raising Tot now, and she's now 3 months old and doing really, really well.
And she'll go back.
The mom's been released. Yeah, she'll go back. And the mom's been released also, and she's doing really well. So when Tot is old enough, we'll release her too.
Are you able to monitor where the mother is and her movements?
Yes, we can. Yeah, all the pangolins that we release, we place satellite tags and VHF tags on. It's quite a cost, but it's very important to monitor them for about 6 months to a year after we release them, so that we know they're healthy and we know they're safe. Most of them we actually monitor longer than that, but we are quite strict on where they go, and that the people that are monitoring them do so correctly, so that we know that they are safe, because we work very hard to get them back to normal and back to health.
And at
not
great
to
cost.
stumble over the last it's quite costly, and not to stumble at that last hurdle into release and it's not properly done.
I think you guys do amazing work. I'm a big fan of what you do. And what's the strangest creature that you've had to work on as a vet? When I say strange, sure. Unusual. Yeah.
I've had lots of unusual things. For people, some people, bats would be unusual. I've treated striped weasels. I have treated venomous snakes. I think the pangolin is the strangest one, because when we started treating them, there was nobody to ask, because vets weren't treating them, we weren't seeing them. And suddenly we were inundated with these animals that are sick, and we didn't know what was up and down and where to put a drip. And, we had to learn all of this. And thankfully we have, sometimes the hard way, but today we have an 80% success rate of the ones that come in that are successfully released back into the wild.
You find that people that are, I don't know where they occur around the world, these animals, but other people that are having to deal with it or consulting with you guys, that because you sort of been the pathfinders for these animals?
Look, there are other rehab centers in Africa that deal with pangolins. Not all of us agree on how to treat, so it's sometimes a bit of a walking on eggshells type thing. But luckily people in Asia have been dealing with this trade longer than we have, because they've there's 4 species is now extinct, so they're coming for the 4 in Africa, and we only have 1 that occur in South Africa. So we could sort of speak to them, even though they're different species, at least we sort of could have extrapolate sort of what they're seeing, pneumonia and all sorts of other diseases, and then we took it from there. But we're the only wildlife vet hospital in Africa actually that is specialized in this particular species.
I'm surprised that they would be forthcoming with that information, because those are the ones they're eating them, you know what I mean?
Yeah, look, the rescue center people don't normally eat them. They're just as horrified as we are.
Yeah.
But they share. But again, it's not, we can only use it up to an extent, because they're not the same species as ours. But the African places, not all of our people share, but we've actually in the last, I must say, 6 months started collaborating a little bit more and sharing what we have and what we've learned, so that we can actually just save the animal and stop with political nonsense and egos and stuff like that.
All right, let's talk about this is everything that happens at your facility is free. So if I arrive with a bat or a snake or a mouse or whatever it is, what's that, Dusty? I will walk in there, or I will be sent by a vet to you, and I will walk in there. I'm not going to get a bill. We know that you do this all free.
No. But yes, as long as the animal is Yes, as long as the animal is not a pet.
Yes.
Because if it's a pet, it is your responsibility then to pay for such an animal, and then you go to your normal regular vet and pay a consult fee. Also, indigenous wildlife cannot actually be owned without a permit, and most of them you won't get a permit for. So yes, you will bring the animal to us and we'll get it back to normal. We're completely donation based, so if people feel like they want to donate $50 or more, whatever they can, they're welcome to do so. Yes.
You can answer this question or not, but give people an indication of, because when people look at making donations, they're looking at making donations in context with what it is that is required. What does it cost you to run this facility a month?
I know exactly how much, actually.
Oh, you know exactly.
I do all the finances as well. It's 300,000 Rand a month we need to stay open, because we have full-time staff.
That's a lot of money.
It is. We have full-time staff. It's myself as the senior vet, and then we have a Dr. Kelsey Skinner, another vet, and we have a veterinary nurse, Nikki. So we rely on staff. A lot of rehab centers have volunteers. We also have volunteers. We love volunteers, but unfortunately, with volunteers, they go on holiday or get, and it's much easier with staff. So it's always a continuity thing as well. So when we go away, there's another vet taking over, and and food for the animals are extremely expensive.
And is that all in the 300,000? The food?
Yeah. That's sort of our monthly expenses to keep the doors open.
And I'm guessing the food in many instances has got to be like specialist these.
It is. We try and stay as close to their natural diet as we can. So we don't use like predator powders and pellets and weird and wonderful things. So we use day-old chicks that we get from hatchery. We feed insects to the insect-eating animals and birds, and that's also quite costly. And rats, dead rats and mice and all those things as well.
Just stop there for a minute and let's just rewind this. You feed insects to the insect-eating. Are you telling me you've got a supplier of insects?
Yes. It's a supply. We use SA bugs. That's their job. They supply bugs and things to people who own bearded dragons and snakes, and you can buy mice from them, all sorts of things because of the exotic pet industry. So a lot of those things eat insects, so we get them from them. We spend about between 5,000 and 8,000 Rand a week on insects.
I'm just thinking, what an interesting business. Imagine being at that business when you have to take stock. It's just my weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 300K, that's what you need to stay open.
Yes.
Working in that kind of environment, outside of the stress that you have to deal with animals and trying to get them back on the road to health and release back into the wild, you've got this always hanging over your head, this stress of, are we going to have enough funding? Are we going to have enough funding? Are we going to have enough funding?
It is unfortunately quite a big part of the stress.
Yeah. Okay, let's give credit to the people who are funding you on a regular basis. I'm sure you've got a couple of corporate donors. I would like you to please mention them because I think they deserve
we don't actually have as many as we would like. Most of our donations come from private people. We have people, I actually don't want to mention them because if I forget one, it will be a disaster.
Okay.
So, but they have been regular donors, and we're also a public benefit organization. So all donations is tax deductible. I just give you a certificate to say that you've donated, whether it's 5 Rand or 10,000 Rand. It's tax deductible.
All right. You also, if I'm not mistaken, you have on your website a sort of snap scan kind of thing, have you not?
Yes, we have snap scan. We have Zapper and PayPal, because obviously we have international donors as well, and they don't have snap scan. They use PayPal. You can EFT, all sorts of ways to donate. And people, not only money, look, there's sometimes we need towels, we need purity of fruit mix for certain fruit-eating birds. So they can donate that. We have a wish list, and people can see what they want to and can donate.
Is that wish list on your website?
It is on our website. It's under how you can help. So it's on
okay. All right. So there is a whole lot on this website. I went through it. I clearly didn't go through it in enough detail to see that, but it is there, and you can go along, folks. I'm going to give you the website again. It is www.johannesburgwildlifevet.com. and you can go there. Very interesting. I'm just looking at a page here now. It says found a bat question mark, and it goes through the process like a question and answer process. What do you call it? Flow chart as to how you will
Yes.
deal with it. And I'm assuming
Yes, because not all of them have to come in. We always try and reunite baby birds and animals or mammals with their parents. That is first prize. But if you can't, then we'll take over and raise and release them. But if we can get them back to mom and dad, it's best.
All right. Now, there are the exotic animals. There's the little dusty. There's the snake. There's all that kind of that you deal with. But probably for the people listening to us here, the most common thing is going to be like a bird that fell out.
It's a garden bird.
Or a bat that flew into the fence, or things like that. When we find these little birds like on the driveway, clearly it's fallen out of the nest. It's lying on the driveway. It's trying to get, what do you call it, a fledgling. It's trying to sort of escape from the cat, because that's our biggest fear. The cat's going to get it and things like that. And
then one of our biggest reasons for them coming in is cat catchers. Yes.
So we as human beings, we feel that we need to step in and help. And so now we pick the bird up, we put it in a box, put the lid on. Is that the right thing, the wrong thing? What are we actually supposed to do?
Yes, you should intervene, because it's a man-made problem that caused the problem in the first place. So, cats are not a natural predator for them. They're actually one of the biggest. I have 2 cats of my own, so I love them. Mine are indoor because they are such a prolific killer of wildlife. But there are ways and means to get around it safely without having to cat bash, like I call it. But if it happened in the middle of Kruger, let's say, it would be left because within 5 seconds something would come along and eat it. But if you have, let's say, an owl that's hit by a car on the side of the road, it'll lie there in the middle of the N1 until somebody else drives over it. It's a man-made problem, so we should fix it. We caused it from the beginning, so we have to fix it then. So anything I believe that is in an artificial environment, like a city, should be handled like that and should be helped.
So you pick the bird up, you put it in a safe space, maybe take it into the house. Because there's this theory, it says leave it, the parents will take care of it and all this kind of stuff.
They will actually. And also, if you touch it, mom and dad won't abandon it. They really don't care whether you've touched it or not. And sometimes, even the mammals, it's no problem. So oftentimes we ask people, even if the neighbors don't have a cat, as long as the parents can see the baby bird, you just put it over the fence, and mom and dad will continue feeding it, and within a week it's flying.
And they'll feed it on the ground.
That's normal for them. They fledge out the nest. Even if you stick it back in the nest, it's going to jump out. It's like a teenager.
I see. So the bird is on the ground because
it fledged. Yes, it's absolutely normal. Whether it's a little dove or a massive eagle, they all do the same thing. They spend some time on the ground. Mom and dad feeds them, and they totter around and eat insects and flap, and eventually they fly off.
And generally, mom and dad are there to protect them because if you try and go too near, they kind of dive bomb you. Some
of them do. Some people always say, "Oh, but I can't see the mom and dad." But then they're standing right over the baby bird. So if you go into the house and you leave it alone, you'll see mom come down. And the best is actually if it's safe, obviously if you don't have dogs and cats, is going to pick it up, to put it underneath a thick bush. Because it's safe there. Mom will find it. It'll call, and so you carry on. Sometimes we call it co-parenting. Sometimes we call it co-parenting. So if it's, let's say you find it at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and it's rainy, you bring it into the house, put it in a box, let it sleep, because birds sleep when it's dark. 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, you take it out, mom and dad feeds it again. And if it's the same story, you can bring it in at night and you carry on.
You see, that is so interesting, Karin, what you're saying there, because again, sitting here listening to you, that's not what I would have done. You see, I would have not taken it in, because I would fear that if I take it into the garage or into the house and put it in a box, that the mom and dad are going to look around and say, okay, it's gone, cat's got it, and
not
they fly away and leave it.
No, not at all. And remember, the parents stay and they live there. That's their territory. So they will stay there. And oftentimes there's a sibling bird. And they've spent I feel always so sad for them when people bring them in or kidnap them, because the parents have spent so much time getting that baby to that size, and then suddenly you yank it away, and it's just gone. So they are happy to co-parent, because obviously the baby, when they fledge, they stay on the ground and they will sleep under a bush where the parents will sleep in a tree. So they don't actually know where their child is during the night, because birds sleep. So that's why you can bring it in, and then first flight and all the chirping start outside. baby bird can go outside again. So we call it co-parenting.
You know what? just I think a lot of people listening to us right now, who certainly me, there's a sense of relief in what you're saying, because now I'm not going to feel the guilt of taking that bird inside and feeling, okay, now the parents, I've got to substitute for the parents. This co-parenting thing is
it's nice.
Yes. Look, I don't know anybody. Anybody got any questions for Karin? You're more than welcome to ask them on the WhatsApp 072-447-8044. Everybody else is on a public holiday. This lady's working because
Never stop.
Animals don't know from public holidays. One interesting thing I've noted, phenomena in this country, the two things I want to ask you about. But the first of them is owls. Owls are fascinating creatures. Now let me get this right. They actually work on sight. Is it sight that their sight is stronger?
No,
hearing?
no, sound.
Sound.
No, the hearing is strong. Yeah, hearing is stronger.
So if you throw a piece of meat on the ground, they hear where it is and that's where they aim.
Yes. What they have, it's interesting enough, if you indulge me, I love owls. I actually have a tattoo of an owl on me. They have their facial, if you look at, let's say, a barn owl, they have like a heart-shaped face. That's called a facial disc. So the whole importance of all those feathers that's on the face is to direct sound to the ears. And the ears sit on different levels so that it's almost like a 3D. So when they hear something, everything goes to the ears, and they actually can pinpoint really accurately exactly where the thing is running in the grass. And they fly silently, so the thing running in the grass won't see or hear them, and then that's how they get them.
All right, so now based on that, because I saw that interesting, I went to a place called the World of Birds, and and they threw a piece of meat on and this owl just beamed in on it, and I found that quite fascinating. And as you say,
that's an imprinted owl. It's a bit different to the ones in the wild, but yes, it's the same principle. Yes.
Now, this raises my question. My car is fairly noisy. Why is it, and this happened to me and I was devastated by it, why would an owl fly into the side of my car?
It's often blinded by the light, by your headlights. And the young owls, the juvenile owls, often feed on insects before they start catching their own mice. And a lot of these insects are next to the road because they come to the light. Or rodents are next to the road, and they're often blinded by your vehicle's headlights and they can't see. And sometimes it's just an accident. You know, it's not, they are so focused on one thing. That's why they also fly into fences at night. They're so focused on looking down that when they look up, there's a thing in front of them and they fly into it. It's not very common, but it happens, unfortunately.
Because I see a lot, I don't know, when you say it's not fairly common, I see a lot of that on the roads in Cape Town, where I'm seeing owls lying on the side of the road, not every day.
It's normally owls that sit in the road and at night. And then when you come with your car, they are so blinded, they actually can't see, and that's when people hit them.
Like a rabbit in the headlights kind of scenario.
Exactly.
All right. Judy is saying, loving this interview. What an incredible lady. Yes, she is that. And anybody who does what she does, I don't know how you do that without becoming angry, because a lot of what you're dealing with sometimes.
Oh, we are angry a lot. We are a lot angry.
Okay, good. Because a lot of what you're dealing with is because of abuse of nature. So
yes, and oftentimes we work a lot with the hawks. We work with the green scorpions. Yeah. We work with local law enforcement. We're also working very closely with the NSPCA. So things get confiscated from people who keep them illegally, and vervets in tiny cages and all sorts of things. So yeah, we often work with quite violent people as well. We have had death threats and all sorts of fun things, but we still do our job. And thankfully the law is on our side. So at least we always can depend on the people we work with to protect us. And they do. We work with really, really great people.
Well, you deserve protecting. That's a question. What about birds in the house? Sometimes they leave, but we had a sunbird just staying up on the rafter and not coming down to look for a window.
If you have that, the best is actually to leave that area completely. Leave your doors open, leave one door open that it can see, and leave. As long as you are walking around underneath it, it's not going to come down. It will only leave once it's quiet. And you're gone, because you're a threat to it. So it doesn't want to come down when you're there.
And it will find the door.
It can be tricky. It will. It can see pretty well.
we have a scenario where I live, where somehow the birds don't differentiate between what is inside and what is outside. They just come and go like it's all part of their environment. But very often
They do.
they will get stuck
Yeah.
in there. What do you do?
You just basically give them one way out, like
Yeah.
open your front door or whatever, your kitchen door, and then you close another door so that they can't get into the rest of the house, and you leave them for half an hour, and they will often make their way out by themselves. And if it's late afternoon, make sure that you switch off the light in the let's say kitchen area, and then they will go towards the light, so they won't stay in the kitchen then. And
And
sometimes they're just a bit disorientated because it's scary and there's noises and people, and urban birds are quite used to homes and because they eat. We have a lot of birds that come into the hospital that are wild, that come and steal mealworms from the other birds. They are very clever when it comes to that. So they know exactly what they're doing.
well, I'll tell you what, we had a starling mama come into our house where I've got an indoor braai, settle herself underneath the indoor braai, and that's where she built her nest there, and that was it. And, and so
That's great.
We just left it.
That's great. It's obviously safe there because she knows they can't get any snakes can get in there.
Well, I hope not.
She's obviously no. There's no other predators, so it's actually quite a safe spot for them. They often make use of houses, like the swift that sit in the rafters and with them little mud nests, and bats. Genets sometimes roost in your roof. And we have a lot of
bats. You mentioned bats. Bats very often get into a house, and then they kind of fly this. It's almost like they're frantic, and they're flying round and round and round in the house, almost to the point where they get tired and they have to hang on something, and then they're disturbed and they fly. How do you get the bats out of the house?
Same thing that you do with the bird. Open a window, close the door, make it as dark as possible, and it'll get out. The reason they hang on something is because they can't get off the ground. So for them to then take off again, they have to
say that again.
If it's on the floor, that cannot take off from the floor. So or a flat, it has to have a drop off to fly. So that's why it hangs on a curtain. So when it flies again, it has to drop off and fly.
So if the bat's on the ground, it's buggered basically.
No. It will normally crawl to where, or try and crawl up something it can get off of. But if you find it on the ground, you can just lift it with a tea towel and go hang the tea towel in your garden on a tree branch, and it will fly off. If it's an adult, obviously.
All right, clearly this is somebody that knows you here. Tell us about your master's degree you did with respect to the pangolin.
Who is that?
I think this
is it Nicola or Richard?
It's one of them. It's one of them. Yeah.
I finished my master's in normal blood values in Temminck's pangolin this year. It was a fascinating thing because when you take your dog or cat to the vet, they can run bloods on a machine with normal dog values and normal cat values. But there's no blood values for pangolins. So for us to know whether it has a kidney issue or dehydrated or whatever, we had to have normal. So that's what I did. I found the normal so that when we get the sick ones in, we can compare it to that.
So now you've set the benchmark for what is normal as part of your master's.
Yes, it hopefully will be published. The article will be published in January.
Take a bow. One more creature that I want to ask you about. Now, I don't know where wildlife vets draw the line between what is animal and what is insect and what is fish and what is what, because animals are animals. Now, the question I want to ask is chameleons. When I was growing up, we lived in a place that had a honeysuckle, the honeysuckle bush.
Yeah.
And you could literally pick chameleons off of there like you would pick lemons off a lemon tree.
Yes.
There were so many of them around, and they're the most fascinating creatures. We grew up with them, hold out flies so that could snap at them, things like that. Missing. If you see...
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's because of us destroying their habitat, because there's now a lot more people living in places. Electric fences are bad for them because that's why when people don't trim their fences, they go from the tree onto the fence, and the minute they touch it, they shock and they're dead. Cats eat them a lot. They are traded, unfortunately. And also with the global warming, all the insects are declining. So a lot of their food sources are declining. So that is often the little things go first. And it's exactly that.
Is that on some kind of extinction list, the chameleon?
I don't know. Some of them are. There's many species. I actually don't know how many South Africa has, but there are anything from, we see a lot of chameleons because obviously traded quite a bit in Gauteng. They're confiscated by the NSPCA. They're not yet on the list, but I'm sure there's somewhere in the world, there's lots of them, maybe from South America, thereabouts. But I'm sure they're going to be on the list soon if it carries on like it does. But it's unfortunately, it's human issues. Habitat destruction is one of the biggest things.
I could talk to you all afternoon. I really could, and I wish, and I'm certainly hoping that we can get the opportunity to talk again sometime.
I'd love to.
We would like to do whatever we can to get the word out about what it is that you do, so that people can make contributions to what it is that you do. So please lean on us at any time that you like. If there's something happening, if there's a special fundraiser, if there's some project that you are working on, let us know. And if we can, look, we're not the biggest radio station in the world, but we do live in an area in the deep south here in the Kommetjie Sun Valley area, where people generally have a love for animals. And I'm sure that there are people that would want to assist wherever they can. So please make use of us. I'm begging you, because
awesome.
I think
thank you so much, Richard. It's amazing. Thank you.
That you guys, seriously, we do good news stories every day at 5:15, and many of the good news stories always end up with the animal survived. Why? Because the animal was taken to the Johannesburg Wildlife Veterinary Hospital. The animal was taken to the wildlife, and it's just sad.
And we've taken animals from all over the country. We have people that fly for us for free. The battlers is a group of people that fly wildlife around the country for free. We have the NSPCA working with us. So anything, even if it's in Cape Town, it's easy to find somebody to help you look after a mouse bird. But if it's something like, let's say a civet or something more specialized, and then we'll try and release it back to where it came from, So we always try and put it back, even if it's an urban area. They're used to like urban genets. They eat park-down prawns, they eat rats, mice, because of people. If you go and dump them in the middle of a bushveld now, it's going to be completely horrified. So and they're adapted to urban environments. So we always try and we deal with all sorts of animals, but the urban animals, we try and put them back. So if you from Cape Town send something like or in the Cape area, a Cape fox, for example, we'll try and get it back to where it came from. It's best practice.
I think that you do remarkable work. I think that every day you must face highs and lows that are extreme, and that you get up every morning and do it on behalf of all of us. I think you and your team, the entire team, we want to just say thank you, because it is appreciated. Sometimes I know that you may feel that it's not. But when you're getting threats from people who don't really understand these things, but we want you to know that the greater majority of people, I would like to believe, would appreciate what it is that you're doing and would find a way to assist. Now, folks, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. You go to the website. Right on that website is if you scroll down, you will find that they're part of the My School, My Village campaign. They also have bank details on there where you can contribute. They also have a snap scan. All of that is on the right at the bottom of the page, and you can scroll down. And on the way down, you're going to see pretty pictures of animals that have been rescued, or not rescued, been treated by these incredible folk. A little tortoise, a little hedgehog. There's an owl here. There's a thing with like a massive beak, which I wouldn't want to mess with. And all of these animals are taken care of by this team at the Johannesburg Wildlife Veterinary Hospital. So please, if you feel inclined to support them, please do.
Thanks, Richard. That was awesome. Thank you.
I have to go. We will have a podcast of this. We'll put it up, and we'll share the link with you. But thank you very much to, was it Nicola who hooked us up with you?
Yeah. Yeah, Nicola is awesome. Thanks, Nicola.
And thank you very, very much for taking the time this afternoon to chat to us. We do appreciate it, and we certainly wish you well over the festive season. Hope that you're not too busy over the festive season, because that would be
most of the Wali's are down in Cape Town, so it's fine. It's actually quite nice here. You guys are busy now.
And I certainly hope that that little Dusty there makes it back into the wild. And we wish you well in your endeavors in the future. But I want to end off by saying this and saying it again. If you need us, we are here for you. We will do
Thank you,
whatever we
I
can
appreciate it.
using the platform that we have to make sure people understand the great work that you folk do. And we want to thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy the rest
You
of
too.
Reconciliation Day. I don't know why we're doing it. I said earlier on, I think it's just a platform for politicians to go make statements. That's, I think, what these public holidays are all about. And have a great festive season. And you've asked us to play a song called Sweet Dreams by the Eurythmics for you. For any particular reason? Any particular reason?
It's one of my favorite songs of all time. Love it.
There we go. Her name is Karin, and she is the doctor at the Johannesburg Wildlife Veterinary Hospital. Her and her team do amazing work, and it was an absolute honor to be able to chat to you this afternoon. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Richard. Bye.
Here's your song. Bye.